Tell us a little bit about what you saw and being able to relay that message to Cora when you watched Kimbrel pitch and kind of help out so he wasn't tipping his pitches.
So tipping pitches, we hear about it all the time.
People at home understand what tipping pitches is all about.
It's amazing.
And that's remarkable.
Alex,
Bobby, Robert.
we really dropped the Lex and Al bit. And by dropped it, I mean we haven't done it for like 2 weeks. And we did it for
Correct.
every pod for like 10 weeks before that.
It's okay. That's just because we're too ready to go, right? It's like we don't have time for your silly little bits.
Yeah, this pod is all business now.
We are.
All business expenses, like going to Fenway Park. I'm really tired.
Me too.
It really takes it out of you. Converting to Red Sox fandom really drained my energy.
It really does. Now I see why Jared Carabas is the way he is.
Say more about that. What do you mean? What way is he? And what ways do you agree? Which do you think he has some room for improvement on? Really lay
Under
it
no
out
circumstances
like for the full listener
do you have to hand it
experience.
to Jared Carabas. Look, sometimes you just got to walk a mile in a guy's shoes.
On Lansdowne.
Exactly.
Sometimes you got to walk a mile on Lansdowne in Jared Carabas' shoes. That's the name
10
of this
toes
episode.
down on Lansdowne.
Before we get into the Fenway portion of the pod, which by portion of the pod, I mean the whole pod. This pod is going to be about Fenway. This is the Fenway Diaries. Alex and I, as well as our friend Kyle, made the trek. We shipped up to Boston this past weekend to
see the place where they filmed The Town.
The Town. What else? A couple other ones. Good Will Hunting.
Fever Pitch. Seminal Film.
The Departed.
Mm-hmm.
How long can we keep this going before one of us says Spotlight? No, we went up to Boston to see Fenway Park, a place that you had taken a tour of, and I had never been to, and neither of us had ever seen a baseball game in. So we're just going to talk about that, and more broadly, the state of baseball stadiums, baseball stadium development, given everything that has gone on in the last, 10 or so years in terms of baseball stadium construction philosophy, how baseball stadiums relate to the cities that they are in from a commercial, from a socioeconomic perspective, a lot of different things. We're just gonna let it rip, as we do.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna dump all the thoughts out in our diary here about Fenway Park. But before we do, Alex, I have a take to share with you.
Yes, I love this.
I went and saw Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning this morning. Again, second time seeing it at the Lincoln Center IMAX. And while exiting, I was standing in line for the bathroom, as one does.
Mm-hmm.
You and I spend quite a bit of time standing in line for bathrooms.
Right?
Not the two strongest bladders in podcasting right here.
Probably about 20% of our time spent over the weekend.
And there was two guys, a few people behind me in the line, loudly exclaiming how bad the film was.
Okay.
Loudly. Loud enough for people in our line, people in the women's line across the hall to probably hear their takes about the plot holes of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. And I would just like to share this take here on Tipping Pitches, as well as I've already shared it on XD Everything app, where people get my premium content first and foremost. I'd like to share this thought with you here, whether you're in line for a movie, whether you're in line at a baseball game, whether you're in line at the theater, which I know you are quite often, Broadway man that you are.
Yeah.
Whether you're in line at the airport, if you're in a line of any sort,
Well, stay in line.
Stay in line. You still can vote for the Biden-Harris ticket. No. Here's my thought. Use your 6-inch voice. I don't want to hear your takes about Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I don't.
Is the average voice 6 inches? Fuck, dude. Shit.
Just going to ignore that. You can't loudly proclaim your takes right after the movie in the bathroom line.
Mm-hmm.
This is supposed to be space for listening and learning, space for thinking.
Sounds like you were listening and learning. You were listening and learning from the two guys who watched Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning.
I was listening to bad YouTube ass takes. Is what I was listening to.
Yeah,
I wasn't learning anything at all. And as a guy who's prone to sharing his takes out loud for people to hear, you have to let those things, as we like to say here on the Tipping Pitches podcast, ruminate.
Yeah, simmer
before you. The bun has to be in the oven for at least a good 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, you need to let the sauce reduce. Otherwise, it's just watery. Like, what is it?
The flavors are not going to be complex.
Exactly.
I don't want to hear you talking about fan service, bro. You're a fan. You're at the movie.
You were the one being serviced.
That's just my take. I needed to get that off my chest here on this megaphone that is the Tipping Pitches podcast.
I think that's a good take.
Thanks.
I feel a little subtweeted, given that while I was in line at Fenway, I just kept talking about how this ballpark is just fan service.
No, on the way out, as people are about to hear, on the way out, you had some takes about how this ballpark's not fan servicey enough.
That's right. That's right. It's fine. Everything's fine.
It all comes out in the wash.
It really does.
We're going to talk about Boston, the Red Sox, Fenway in just a few seconds. But before we do, I am Bobby Wagner.
I am Alex Baisley.
And you are listening to Tipping Pitches.
I'm down with Fenway.
Okay.
The seats are really small.
All right, Alex, thank you to this week's new patrons: Sean, Matt, Joseph, Augustin, Docker Peffer, Gregory, and Taylor. Oh, and Ellen. Didn't want to forget Ellen.
Never.
Forgot to write it down this week, so I was scrolling through the email notifications that we get from Patreon when we get a new member. Because the membership page in that phone app is different than in the desktop. It's a whole thing.
Yeah. You did great, though. I couldn't tell.
You couldn't tell that I was scrolling through right there?
No.
That's great. That's good news.
Hey, speaking of the Patreon.
What of it?
We just launched some new shirts.
Oh, all right. Take it away. The floor is yours.
You want to do a little marketing?
Traveling salesman, Alex Baisley.
That's right. Peddling the wares. 3 new designs.
That's probably the best thing that you can do with your wares. Is peddle them.
Just peddle them. Yeah.
That must feel good for the wares to be peddled like that.
It's true. I would like to be a professional peddler one day. And you got to start somewhere. One shirt at a time, as they say.
Or 3 shirts at a time.
Or 3 shirts at a time. We have 3 new designs. tippingpitches.myshopify.com. If you are a day one patron.
Link.
It's a whack link. My Shopify? No, our Shopify.
That's right. Just like Communist Bugs Bunny would say.
Day one patrons get a free shirt just as a thank you for hanging around with us this whole time. We are just a little 3 years since launching this Patreon, and it's been through a few different iterations. But for those of you who have been here since the very beginning, we wanted to give a little thank you for hanging in there with us as we learn sort of how to make a business on the fly. Right now, we're lowering our prices week after week, seeing how far we can go.
Pretty soon, we'll be paying you to be members of the Patreon.
Go check that out. You can check out all the 3 shirts. tippingpitches.myshopify.com.
Do you want to talk about each design? Do you want to explain how you got there?
Right, the creative process.
Yeah, this is like how I built this. You familiar with that pod?
Right,
we're like the how I built this for leftist baseball podcast merch designs.
Yep. So
I'm Guy Raz because you made the shirts,
and I'm the inventor.
Yeah. So we have to start with like a really overwrought cold open of like a motivational quote about why you built the shirts. So like, give me something to work with here. Come on, let's just spitball it right here on the fly. We didn't practice this.
No, we didn't. No, but honestly, it was a lot of days spent lounging
wearing
at the
no
ballpark,
shirts,
wearing no shirts,
imagining a shirt you could have,
getting into a lot of trouble, frankly, many establishments aren't too keen on that. I got a whiteboard, right? I was like, well, what do? First, you start with a whiteboard. Doesn't even matter what you throw up there. And then I was like,
leaving it blank could be as powerful as putting something on it.
Exactly. It was blank for weeks. I just stared at it. And I was like, what is the garment that could solve my problem?
Your problem of not wearing a shirt?
Of not wearing a shirt, yes.
Right.
And then it hit me. Quite literally, I was at a Phillies game, and the fanatic lined up the T-shirt gun, whacked me across the side of the head, and it was like a little light bulb
Whacked by the fanatic, the Alex Baisley story.
Look, you just gotta go see him for yourself. I'm sorry.
There's 3 new shirts. One says "No public money for billionaires." One is there's like a pizza concept.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pizza concept.
It's a pizza concept.
You know, there's a shirt. You don't even have a shirt.
Concept.
And there's nothing on it, and then you have like a pizza design sort of situation. That's number 2. Number 3 is it promotes the idea of baseball being more important than going to your job.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the 3 designs. It says fewer work days, more ball games. And it has a little picture of a baseball smashing a little computer screen.
Well done. Do you want to talk about sort of the alignment of the text on there? Left-aligned text?
Left-aligned
controversial?
Text, yeah. Well, the most controversial part of that shirt was that I advocated for fewer work days, the grammatically correct version. And you were like, yeah, but it is cooler and more conversational to say less work days.
Right.
And I said, well, no, you're going to pull all of the grammar heads out of the woodwork. And then we're going to have to explain, no, we did it intentionally.
Yeah. That's a whole thing.
Yeah.
That's not who I want to go up against right now.
And now we're starting to talk about, sort of open the can of worms of artistic intent versus artistic reception.
Yeah.
And now we have to really get into the marketplace of ideas on that front. And we thought that would not have been conducive to just selling the most shirts and making the most money, which, as you know, is definitely the goal of this operation here.
Right. Yeah.
I'm happy with the shirts. I hope people who have started to receive them are happy with theirs too. As a note, if you're buying the shirts and you've bought merch from us before, they are being printed on different shirts now, more heavyweight shirts. They're a little boxier. They are bigger, I would say, just broadly. So factor that in when you're buying your shirt. But I hope they are satisfactory.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember the day fondly. I was sitting at a baseball game wearing one of our shirts, and it was a little tight. And I was like, what is the solution to my problem?
Well, yeah. There's only one man that's out there that's going to fix this problem for you, and that's yourself.
The fanatic came up behind me and double tapped me.
Double tapped.
And now I'm suing the Phillies. So, do you want to talk about Fenway? Should we do it?
I guess
Have we been talking long enough?
No, we've been talking long. We've been talking.
Okay.
We've been talking too long. Let's just stop the pod here.
Okay.
We'll talk about Fenway next week. No,
I'm
just kidding. Fenway Park. Your thoughts?
It's a good ballpark.
You came into this recording, by the way. You were like, I have so much to say. I have so many thoughts. So I'm just gonna let you cook for a little while.
Okay.
And I'm gonna see what that inspires within me. You know, as the Guy Raz of this podcast, I'd like to let you drive the conversation. I don't come in with a preconceived notion of how this is going to go.
Fenway is cool. You like not to be corny about it, but like you walk in and you kind of feel the history right there. You know, feel like you're walking alongside the ghosts of baseball's past.
Yeah, Jimmy Fallon, Drew Barrymore,
Ben Affleck. Yeah.
Don't forget Renner.
That's true. How could I? Yeah, I mean, it feels like a cathedral to a different era of baseball, right? This sort of living relic that is held together by part myth, part, massive corporate LED signage, and a fear of what would replace it, right? If it was knocked down. I mean, it is so nestled right in the middle of the city, little downtown ballpark. Heard of it?
Let me write that down in my notes to come back to.
Okay.
Down. You said downtown ballpark?
Yeah. Like in the middle of the city. Like it's not like, I know you generally prefer to go out to like a ballpark village, right? Mm-hmm. Preferably one that is roughly 45 minutes out of town.
Yes. But this one you say is downtown.
In the city.
Okay,
In the
great.
city. Dude, the footprint of this park is crazy.
Yeah, speak on it.
It's
Urban
just a
Design
city.
Alex in the building.
It's just a fucking city block.
Yeah. It's exactly like it's exactly like Wrigley in that way.
It is. I mean, it is really hard to not compare it to Wrigley. As I was walking around, I think Wrigley clears.
Fenway Park overall. Slotted in. Out of all the stadiums you've been to.
I'm not sure it's going to crack the top 5, if we're being honest.
Really? Okay, better or worse than Wrigley?
I like Wrigley more.
Oh, man. You're not afraid to be a truth teller as we're surrounded by Red Sox
I know, I
fans
know.
as we walk out. I think I agree. I think so. I think I agree.
Yeah. But I do... This is the vibe here is like very... And honestly,
It's not as barstooly.
it's not as stooly.
Not
Pretty
as
good crowd.
stooly. Great crowd.
That being said, Fenway feels far less barstool coated than Wrigley.
Against all odds.
Against all odds, right? Like, I really was not sure what I was going to experience when I walked in there. But it's like this weird cocktail of old Boston Union guys and Northeastern graduates. And it's cool. The vibe was good. Maybe best captured by the 4 guys in front of us who spent about 3 innings trying to figure out how to split $28.
Not just $28. It was $28 worth of buzz balls, those tiny little plastic bottle cocktails that you can buy.
I hope 24 hours later, I hope they have figured it out. Because they had not by the time they left the seats.
I would be surprised if they had figured it out based on how far they got in those 3 innings, which was to say nowhere.
Well, and they probably spent more yesterday. So that total is just going to keep going up.
They just need to let one person do all the expense
Yes.
and then share the cost.
We went to 2 games this weekend.
Yep.
The Friday evening game, Saturday afternoon game, sat in different places.
Very different places.
Very different places for the first game in the grandstand along the first base side. Had to experience that obstructed view for ourselves.
It was hella obstructed. I
was
saw
hella- it
Lucas
was hella
Giolito's
obstructed.
toe on every pitch.
Yeah, I saw
Literally
his
just
extension.
his toe. That was great.
And then we were in the bleachers for Saturday's game.
Amazing.
What was
view.
amazing view? Yeah. What was your vibe? What was your vibe kind of going in? Did it live up to what you were expecting it to be? To the extent that like you could expect it to be anything.
I had the feeling while I was there, like I was in a place that I wasn't allowed to be.
Uh-huh.
Like, when you're walking around in like the tiny little corridors in right field, because we were basically in right field most of the time. We didn't really approach the monster in any way. We didn't sit up there. First of all, I would never sit up there because I'm afraid of heights. Second of all, I think it's more expensive to sit up there for some reason, like because it's sort of like a token thing. But when you're walking alongside behind the grandstand seats and you're in like a 3-foot wide area, it has the feeling of like when you're in a museum and there's like a roped off place that you're not supposed to go and you just like accidentally got there somehow. And I'm like, I feel like I'm not supposed to be walking along this fence because there's not enough space for me to be here.
Right.
But to your
That's
point,
the ground crew right there. We could either go left to go up the stairs or right to walk onto the field.
right. And that's not to say that like your point doesn't still stand about the footprint of the ballpark, like being really logical based on the dimensions that it was originally built into, but it feels so unbelievably drastically different from basically every other ballpark experience I've ever had that it took a while for it to compute in my brain. Even the geometry of the field, and I know this is something that is like present in the conversation about games that are played at Fenway Park, the way that right field hooks out further almost past the foul pole, that there's like way more to go in right field. And it's the only stadium, of course, that is like that in Major League Baseball. And
I genuinely did not understand why the pole was so pesky until I went there. It doesn't capture it on TV.
I mean, the only way to capture it on TV would be to have like an aerial drone shot to really
where
see
they are
like
specifically showing you.
Yeah. Well, to see really where the right fielder has to go to basically like quote unquote rob a home run, even though the fence is like 3 feet high. and like how you could hook it around the pesky pole is just impossible to tell from the 2-dimensional version that you usually see right field, the vantage point that you see right field at Fenway from. I agree with your point that it felt more down to earth than I was expecting it to feel, just in terms of the crowd. Everyone was just watching the game. Everyone was hanging out. It seemed like everyone who was there, this was not like the first, this is obviously like an assumption on my part, and super anecdotal evidence, but it seemed like a lot of the people who were there, especially when you were seated, like if you were roaming around the Truly Terrace or the Sam.
Like you were.
Well, yes. You know,
trying to get as close to Jonathan Papelbon as possible.
We touched hands through the glass. It was a really nice moment. If you're roaming around that area or the Sam deck or whatever, which is up there looking down onto right field, obviously you have your quarter zip types, you have your frat bro types. That's going to be at any professional sporting event. But for the rest of it, when you were actually seated, it really felt like most of the people around you were talking about the game and the game only. And in fact, we're like, and I was here last night, and I'm pissed that the Red Sox dropped 2 of 3 or 3 of 4 or whatever it was to the Orioles, the team in last place.
Yeah, who are spending more time creating content on YouTube than actually doing drills.
Well, would you like to use this as a little aside to talk about the deep research you've been doing into the Orioles YouTube channel?
I really have.
You've been putting in the time.
I have been putting in the time. I've been trying to catalog which teams are doing season-long documentaries on their YouTube channels, because it's not zero, and which is frankly surprising to me. It feels like a somewhat risky choice, but the Orioles are doing it. Technically, the Orioles are doing 2. They have like a mini
2 different docs.
Well, they have a doc and then like an interview series featuring players, where like the players interview each other.
Yeah,
but
I thought you meant they were doing 2 different docs. Like one was canon and one was like fan service.
Right.
So one was canon, one was fan lore.
But the Cubs have one, the Twins have one, the Yankees have one, and the Phillies have one.
This is debasing behavior. You're a baseball team. Go play baseball games.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what the baseball is for. Stop trying to be content arm.
I know.
Content
Drive
farms.
to Survive. Yeah.
Jeez. Speaking of Drive to Survive, we crushed a little F1 before Sunday's game.
That we did. Unfortunately, it happened to be maybe the worst F1 race of all time, but what are you going to
do? My friend was there at that race. He was like,
I
saw to see how
that.
fast they were going, but also that was such a boring race. And there's no room to pass, and this new rule where you have to do the 2 pit stops is dumb. And
I'll do an hour of F1 talk with you right now.
It's Manfred-esque, the way that they've changed this rule.
Frankly, it is.
Save that for the Patreon. We can talk about that on the Patreon.
Right,
Back to Fenway. I think the thing that I come away feeling the strongest about is how it has warped, in a good way, that area of the city. It has been the gravitational force with which that area of the city is built around. There seems to be so much stuff around there that is just going on because that is there.
Mm-hmm.
And not in a superficial kind of way where there's just trying to do a cash grab.
Right. It doesn't feel as premeditated.
To do real estate development around the park. I'm certain that real estate developers, big moneyed interests, the John Henry ownership group, Fenway Sports Group, I'm sure they have had a hand in making it feel this way. And I'm sure after 50 years from now, Wrigleyville or the Battery in Atlanta will start to feel like this too, just because time passes and you forget about how all these decisions were made. But it's an intangible thing to say something like this, but just like the vibe around the park felt like baseball. It didn't feel like commercialism. And it's a really fine line, because baseball is commercialism. Baseball is commerce, despite what the Supreme Court would tell you. It felt like baseball.
What you're saying is they were not encouraging non-spectating behavior. You could argue that
correct.
They are solely encouraging spectating behavior.
Of all 30 Major League Baseball teams, they are encouraging spectating behavior of baseball more than any other one that I have ever been to. And it's like not even close.
I agree with that.
there's been a pretty present conversation this year about how Fenway is the only place that is not just like playing, Usher sound clips between every pitch. You go to a Major League Baseball game, it's like a pretty universal experience that it's like you're at a club for 45% of the time. And the sound systems now are so advanced that they can really dial it in to give you a particular auditory and visual experience with the way that the boards look and everything. I mean, at Fenway, they were playing some stuff. It's not just dead silence out there like it's 1951. But once the game actually starts, it is significantly less than a lot of other places. And I mean, that probably adds to why I felt the way that I did about being able to pick up on other conversations around us being about the game. It's just like, there's not a lot else going on in a good way. All right. Here we are. We are in the bottom of the third. Bottom of the third? Bottom of the third. I would say Alex's energy level is maybe a 3 out of 10. Alex, how would you rate your energy level?
How would I rate my energy level? So my energy level is a 3 out of 10. However, I would rate that level a 10 out of 10.
So you're like credit rating,
right?
My rating of your energy level.
AAA backed energy level.
How are you enjoying your first Fenway Day game?
It's great. Fenway's cool.
Good note.
I do wish they'd spent more public money on it.
As Rafael Devers strikes out.
I think that they could have had an awesome sports book next to this thing.
Like the game yesterday. How about that dad that was sitting behind us that was just teaching his kid about everything that was happening?
Fucking
sitting out in the bleachers at Fenway, a park that's been around over 100 years, and there's still just like a 4-year-old behind us learning what baseball is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's all about, right?
That's
there, man.
Genuinely one of the coolest things in the world to witness. I agree. Yeah, like there's no in-game hosts, trying to like fill the space.
Ooh, so you don't want those people to have jobs? Is what you're saying?
Correct. I think they can be AI'd away, frankly. No, it doesn't feel like they are constantly trying to grip your attention. They're like, it's okay that there's downtime.
Yes, they trust that you are allocating your attention the way that you want to be by being at the game at all.
Right, exactly. Your attention will be back when the inning resumes. You can use the second to get up, go stand in line at the bathroom and complain about the Mission Impossible movie. Whatever you want. This is your time. This is your time.
Alex Cora pulling Lucas Giolito when he did was fan service.
That's No, it's just really cool. I did think you didn't need to jump down the center field wall and run across the field to tell me not to sell my soybean stocks. You could have just texted me, but I appreciated the commitment and the night spent in the drunk tank.
God, I would kill to be on that field.
I know, right?
Should I debut my...
We could have. They were running the bases afterwards.
Yeah, I think you probably were a little old for that.
Sounds like a mindset issue. Be the first guy to get a fake ID that makes me younger than I actually am.
Before we start talking about this idea of preservation versus modernization, which I do think is a worthwhile thing for us to talk about, given that Fenway and Wrigley are probably the only two ballparks that walk this line, this tightrope as tightly as they do, and in many ways are the exception that prove the rule from the rest of the way that America handles stadiums and sporting venues. Is there anything else about the experience of like getting in, walking around, being in the bowels of the stadium, being underneath the stadium, the concessions, you want to get into the nitty-gritty, the beer selection, kind of mediocre, if we're being honest.
Kind of mediocre. But you know what? Even that I'm kind of okay with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
make a choice and stick to it.
Right, exactly. I don't, as an
Sam
IPA
Adams
drinker,
has Boston in a fucking vice grip. Is what I have realized.
I think you don't need 17 different like specialty IPAs. I think it's awesome that you go to Wrigley and it's like, you want an IPA? Here's your Goose Island. Like, we've got it queued up for you, Boston is similar like that. It's like, here's your fridge full of Sam Adams. Then like, here's 2 or 3 other options for you to pick from. It's cool. I don't need a specialty brisket sandwich for $29. You know,
You say this, but you come every baseball game you go to, you do
I
find
get- I
something
get-
like that, and you get it.
yeah, and I get it, and it's
Yeah.
amazing every single time. But that's just because I'm doing journalism,
Oh, okay. Okay, you're doing journalism.
right? I moonlight for Eater.
Yeah, you should moonlight for Eater. That'd be a good job for you.
That would.
If you were itching to spend $38 on a sandwich, there was an option for you: the lobster roll.
That's true. It
I
might
saw
literally
that
kill
sign.
me, but
Let's brief macros conversation here.
uh-huh.
Back on the pod. I saw that. sign.
Unfortunately, you told me what they are now.
Would you like to try to
No.
tell the class about what you learned?
No, I'm going to hand it right back to you.
Okay, great. I saw that sign, $38 lobster roll. Like, okay, I understand. It's a captive audience. This is what we charge people. It's $17 beers, $38 lobster rolls all the way down. But to spend $38 on a sandwich that then in the nutrition info next to it said 300 calories, you just can't justify it. You just can't when you put it in those terms.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna have to eat I'm gonna have to eat the hot dog after this just to be able to say that was lunch. And now I'm out $48.
Is that typical for lobster rolls? Or does that just mean it's mostly bread? It's mostly roll.
No, I think that means it's mostly. I gotta say I don't know.
Okay.
I would think that there would be more because of the mayo or butter, depending on
Right.
what way it's prepared. I was assuming that it was cold. They were not going to serve me a hot lobster roll at Fenway to go back to my seat and let the butter just like seep into my lap. But I don't know. See, this is why you do the journalism. This is why you get the
exactly.
sandwich.
Exactly.
What did you eat? I don't even remember.
I had a hot dog the first day and a sausage the second day.
Mhm.
They were both fine. That's exactly what I want when I go to a ballpark is a fine hot dog.
I had chicken tenders and Parmesan fries the first day, and it was
Yeah.
actually really good.
The Parmesan fries were fire.
One of the best things that I've had at a ballpark in quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
The second day, I had 2 hot dogs and a sausage outside the stadium.
How was that?
I had speaking of journalism, I had one Fenway Frank, which is the normal size hot dog, and one jumbo dog, which is just the same thing but bigger to compare. I liked the proportions of the Fenway Frank better.
Interesting. Was it a different sized bun as well?
Same bun.
Same bun. That is interesting.
The bun being that like sliced down the middle white bread style bun that is typical, I have learned, of a Massachusetts style hot dog.
Mm-hmm.
One of the great things that our country has done, and this world has done, is that everywhere kind of has their own take on the humble hot dog.
Uh-huh.
That's great stuff.
I'm still reeling a bit from my London hot dog experience last year.
Teach me about it. What happened to you? That's what I'm here for. I'm here to listen and learn. But mostly
It had
listen.
it was
Fish and chips on it.
yeah.
It's a hot dog with a big piece
Bang,
of
it had
fried
bangers
fish.
and mash.
Oh no!
No,
Mushy
I
peas
mean,
on top.
right. No, I think it had like coleslaw and like fried onions.
Now,
Honestly,
do we think that was like a London style hot dog, or that was just what they had?
that was just the one that they had? I'm not sure. Anyone who knows, if you know about the London style hot dog, 785-422-5881. What are you finding over there? I see
Google
you doing some
AI.
research.
Google AI says that a London style hot dog isn't a specific standardized dish like Chicago or New York. Instead, it refers to the general concept of hot dogs as they are enjoyed in London and the UK, which includes variations in toppings beyond what's commonly seen in the US.
Wow, a London style hot dog is however you like it.
It's more
of a state of mind.
more of a vibe.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually really funny. That was the
That is
first time that
hilarious.
Google AI really made me laugh. Google AI, you silly cat. So it wasn't good, is what you're saying.
It was
London
not
flopped
great.
it.
No,
They flopped
it was a bit of a flop.
I thought that what was weird about my Boston hot dog, my Fenway Frank, was that, I had mustard on it, as I always do. No relish option. It's
Yeah.
an anti-relish establishment, Fenway Park. I didn't see relish anywhere.
I didn't either.
Do we think that's like drawing a line in the sand, being like, we're not Wrigley?
I think so.
Best hot dog I have ever had at a ballpark, Wrigley. clears
Without a doubt.
mile. Not even close.
And part of that is just because
the Chicago dog is the superior hot dog, of course.
Yes, literally, right? Every other stadium just has some variation on a regular hot dog, but the Chicago hot dog is so unique that it's like, yeah, of course this is better because this is, how am I going to just compare this to like ketchup and mustard? It's a different thing. It's doing an entirely different thing.
Now, if there was a ballpark that wanted to just punt on the idea of even trying to do the regular hot dog and wanted to go full Denmark dog, now we could talk about we're in league with the Chicago dog.
Mm-hmm.
Denmark with the crispy onions on top. You know, we got a full length pickle in there.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm not familiar.
We got pickled onions in there as an option. It's legit.
Oh, okay.
It's legit.
All right.
We're going legit in Denmark. You'll see when we move Tipping Pitches Industries to Copenhagen, which is my lifelong goal.
I think we got to start pounding the expansion drumbeat now then.
MLB expansion.
Yeah.
Why start talking about MLB now? We can just go over there and talk about whatever we want.
Do you, speaking of talking about whatever we want, do you want to talk a little bit about the sort of preservation and modernization conversation around Fenway?
I do. Here's my take.
Yeah.
Don't knock your stadium down.
That's right.
Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how tempted you are, DraftKings comes to your doors. They say, hey, we'd like a bigger video board for us to advertise on. You say, just say no, as Nancy Reagan would advise.
Uh-huh.
A new real estate developer, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps A-Rod Corp?
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps the real estate arm of David Rubenstein's beloved, what is it called?
Carlisle, bro.
Carlisle Group comes to you and they say, hey, we've bought a couple city blocks for you. It's yours if you want it.
Which is usually how they do business transactions. They just kind of buy stuff and then say, hey, it's yours if you want it.
Well, yes. But
actually, that might be how they do business,
kind of
honestly.
How they do real estate. I don't know what you're talking about. Just as Nancy Reagan would advise, just say no to the Carlisle Group, Alex. No, we're making a lot of jokes. But look, I understand why this happens. I just think that we actually have to sometimes make principled decisions about things. You actually have to make the choice to say, Fenway is more important than convenience at the stadium. Fenway is more important than juicing every orange of a consumer who walks into this ballpark for everything that they are worth.
You're saying the juice would not be worth the squeeze.
The juice would not be worth the squeeze. Name that movie. Fenway is not optimized like everything has to be optimized nowadays. It's modernized in some ways. You can tap your card, or as every person who worked at the stadium said, tap your card. Tap right here, tap your card. Which I loved. I was very charmed by that. Always charmed by accents. I don't know. That's just a thing about me.
Can you do any other accents right now?
I have a couple that I'm working on for the Patreon.
Okay. All right.
So if you want to hear some more accent work, head on over patreon.com/tippingpitches. Always
We're going worldwide for those accents too.
Yeah, any accent you want, just put it in the request. Alex will do it for you. But like it's not just like a free-flowing commercialism like every other ballpark where it's like you could do the full 360 walk around and along the way you could easily just part with $300 without even noticing it, you know? And that's not, we're probably overstating how like it's still a ballpark where you can like buy merch and buy concessions and all that stuff too. But the only reason to knock down Fenway would be because of that. Would be because your idea of modernization comes along with all of these like, 21st century late capitalism views on how we build a venue to, again, part someone from their hard-earned cash. And I can't help but think about the fact that like Yankee Stadium is a huge flop for every purpose except expensive luxury boxes for giving Goldman Sachs a place to go after work, But compared to the original Yankee Stadium, compared to Wrigley, compared to Fenway, it's a big time miss. And I think that it should be so far out of the hands of just one owner or just one ownership group, how a decision like that gets made now or in the future. To think about the idea that if John Henry has a change of heart or if he sells the team to some private equity group or whatever, that they could just be like, this is our prerogative now to do this. And if you don't give us what we want, we can move the team wherever we want to. It actually kind of even like it breaks my heart a little bit. That's a landmark. I know I talked about this when I was making the case for why we should go, why we should do this episode, why I was charmed by the Red Sox documentary, why I felt like this was the biggest missing ballpark in my mission to see all 30. I'm now at 17, which is still not as much as it should be. But if we're not going to preserve something that is this culturally and financially significant for the sake of the future, for posterity's sake, I mean, kind of like, what is this all for? You know what I mean? That's like, I came away feeling that way. And it's not like I don't even think there's even like a threat to tear down Fenway. But it was probably from like an ownership perspective, a huge headache to do all of the upgrades and modernizations that they have done in the last 20 years or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have spent something like, close to $500 million over the last couple decades shoring up the stadium. But it also is really fascinating in the context of other baseball teams who get a new stadium, probably in the late 90s or early 2000s. And then a couple decades later are like, this stadium has outlived its useful life, right? And I'm thinking of like the Rangers, for example, or the Diamondbacks who are looking bit. I mean, and like obviously every situation is different. Those two teams in particular play in very in very unique climates. But I think more broadly, Fenway is a testament to the fact that actually you can make your ballpark last if you're willing to accept some of the quirks that come along with that, which I think is like part of what makes baseball fun, is the fact that every stadium looks unique and every stadium is a different experience for the fans. Like that is part of the fabric of the sport. And so it really does feel like it kind of offers almost a third way for ballparks, little third way action,
A third space,
a little
even
a little abundance action.
Okay,
All right, no, never mind.
now that you mention it, abundance. Would it be worth it to knock down Fenway if we then built instead public housing in there?
Yeah. Well, and hey, look, the Fenway Sports Group is currently in the midst of a massive renovation around there that's going to build like new luxury apartments and stuff and more team stores and like
build, but it's for ballparks. We just end up with like all these ballparks that no one can afford.
Exactly. A ballpark in every city. That's what I'm running on. But I don't know. It's a recognition that like the value of a baseball team that accrues is not simply measured in how efficiently can you part the consumer from their dollar.
Yeah.
Right. It's a little more intangible than that. Look, at the end of the day, that is their goal, but there are different paths to getting there. Right. And the only path there is not necessarily placing a shiny new video board or sports book or whatever in front of the fan to entice them to spend more of their money.
I think that can be a path too, though. If you have a good reason for that, and if it makes sense, and if it's part of a strategy, and if it's part of what you're trying to do with the ball club, like, okay, there's room for that. There's also room for something else.
Right?
Yeah, that's why I'm pro Wrigleyville. I had a great time. I actually did have a great time in Wrigleyville, but
I know it was awesome.
Thing. When you compare it to like what's happened at Citi Field over the last 5 years since Steve Cohen took over the team, they have done a lot of the modernization stuff. They've put in a bigger video board. They have DJs playing between innings. They have multiple in-game hosts. They have a dance crew. They have a block party in the parking lot. They have a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they're trying to be. They're trying to be an alternative path to the Yankees. This
Yeah.
like stuffy, traditional organization that thinks of themselves as like baseball past, present, and future. And the Mets
Right.
are trying to be like, we're just different. We're different than that. We're
Right.
offering you a different
Big Tent baseball.
a family experience where even if you're not super duper into baseball, you can still have a good time at the ballpark. Just because that works for the Mets, and it is working, to be clear, I would not want to see the Red Sox try to do something like that. Honestly, because that works for the Mets, I would not like to see the Red Sox do something like that. I'd like to see a diversity of experience within what the 30 Major League Baseball teams are. Because these are, even though they act in concert all of the time, these are 30 unique businesses that are supposedly supposed to be competing with each other. I mean, I know they're not, but like, it is just a better experience to be a fan of the game if you have a bunch of teams doing things in a slightly different way. It fosters a stronger identity to be a fan of your team versus a fan of a different team if they are different. And to bring it back to Fenway a little bit, what keeping Fenway authentic to its original intent does, I think in a weird roundabout way, it actually forces the Red Sox to continue to try to be like a good A+ franchise. Like you can't roll out the 2025 Colorado Rockies in Fenway. You just can't do it. Like aside from the fact that the Red Sox have had success in this organization, Boston fans are notoriously like demanding as a fan base. Even if you set aside all of that stuff, if you put out a team that is losing 85% of their games in most iconic sporting venue in the country, or one of the most iconic sporting venues in the country, it just draws more attention to it.
Yeah.
And you just
especially
can't get away
when there's
with it.
nothing else there, right? Especially when you are going to see the baseball game.
But if every team is exactly the same, it just becomes less and less important for any team to be better or act better, you know?
Yeah, right. It becomes about an experience where fans go, and baseball is a byproduct of, or is the ancillary focus to what you're going for, right? You're going there to experience Citi Field, and you can watch a baseball game, and you can play some games in the outfield with the kids, and you can maybe have a little nice dinner if you really want, and just go and hang and that's fine, and that works. But I agree with your assessment that there needs to be some variety. I think the sport just kind of demands it a little bit.
And the Red Sox and the Cubs, and to a different extent, the Dodgers, are the last three organizations that are keeping that thread alive.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I have sung the praises of Dodger Stadium for years on this podcast for the same reason. Because to try to sum it up in one single phrase, to lose places like that would be to lose the ancient texts. Honestly.
Yeah.
We got to keep them. We got to preserve them.
I think the Sweet Caroline bit is good.
Yeah.
That's my take. It's cool.
I agree.
Rate that tradition on a scale of 1 to 10.
That's a solid 9. You can't just make that stuff up overnight.
No, you really can't.
You got to commit to it for a long time. It has to go through multiple different phases of being like new and weird.
Right. And forced and a little corny. And
yes. And then it has to be beloved and iconic. And then there has to be a backlash to that where it's like, now it's super corny. And then look at these Boston fans singing this shit. And then once that dissipates a little bit, now it's back to being cool. I think it's cool. Good take.
Maybe this is a good time. Should I give my Billy Joel statement now?
Are you ready to? You told me for the last few days that you were refusing to comment.
Right. I recognize that not everything needs a reaction. But I just want to say, despite my years-long campaign against subjecting anyone to Uptown Girl, this is not the way I wanted to win.
For the record, the Mets do not subject anyone to Uptown Girl. They subject
This isn't
people
about the
to
Mets.
Piano Man.
This is not about the. This isn't about the Mets. It's
You're
about
on a baseball podcast.
All right.
It's always about the Mets.
We're here at the 7th inning stretch. Alex has acquired some soft serve ice cream. Where's that energy level at? We were at a 3 out of 10, and that was 10 out of 10 credit rating.
Right.
Now we are. I'd say we've bumped up to a 5 or so.
I think we're at like a 5 or so. And there's a natural limit on what the rating's going to be today.
And why is that?
Because I am saving myself for
marriage. You're saving yourself for what, the ride home?
Yeah, right, exactly.
No, for the pod tomorrow.
For the pod tomorrow.
Right, you can't do pod before the pod. You can't do pod on back-to-back days. All right, great. Periodic check-in. I'll check in again after Sweet Caroline, see if we can bump that number up to a 6.
I think 6 is probably the highest we're gonna get right now.
6 is the highest. Would you say that's a 10 out of 10 rating on the 6 being the highest?
Yeah, as far as 6s go, it is a good 6. Like if I was Anthony Fantano, I'd say it's a light to a strong 6.
Okay. If I was Anthony Fantano. Okay, great. This has been the Alex Energy Check-In, brought to you by Citgo.
Wherever you go,
Citgo's.
Citgo's.
Can I tell you my final thought?
Please.
I left Fenway thinking, baseball is a pretty good business. Especially after we spent the whole game sitting out in the bleachers, seeing how filled it was, being able to look at the whole stadium and just get a sense of how many people were there. And, you know, in league with the rest of what we have said about Fenway, being this sort of timeless relic representing a century of, you know, tens of thousands of people coming out 81 times a year to watch baseball of varying quality. I just kept thinking about, and I know we've put this conversation to bed many times on this podcast, but all of the fear mongering around the idea that baseball is not profitable or not as profitable as it used to be or not as profitable as some other sports. And I'm just like, yeah, this like gigantic magnet that draws people of all ages out to the ballpark several times a week, rain or shine, literally, to watch a team that keeps dipping below 500 any chance they can take it. That's the thing that you're saying is not a very good business anymore, to spend all of this money to come out here, spend $81 a ticket to not be able to watch the pitcher.
Yeah.
Because it's blocked by a pole.
Right. We were like kettled into a city block trying to get into that second game, you know, like shoulder to shoulder with people.
And I know that this is just like decades and decades of propaganda trying to make people feel that baseball is not as profitable as it actually is, and that the owners are not really taking home as much money as they say they are, or as we know they are. And I know all of that. But to have the experience at Wrigley and Fenway, to have spent as much time as I have in my life at Dodger Stadium, to be pretty familiar with Petco Park, where the Padres play, to go to Citi Field as often as I do, to, against my better judgment, go to Yankee Stadium a couple times a year. All these different experiences of packing the house, all these different experiences of baseball teams being able to provide a unique experience that still taps into that love for the game. To think about that in comparison to the way that the game is talked about as being on the downslide, I'm just like, not to be like, you guys aren't in the streets with the people when you're saying stuff like that, but you guys are not in the fucking streets with the people.
I literally don't see it. Yeah.
I don't see it. I don't see it. In fact, I see the opposite.
I mean, I obviously agree with you. Like, I don't see the stock going down. Once again, I don't see why they would be investing $1.5 billion in the coming years to make their own little, like, Fenwayville, or why they would have invested so much money in the past couple decades to modernize it and preserve it at the same time. Like,
Follow the money is what you're saying?
I have to follow the money. I don't understand. If it's a bad business, you would get out, right? Like, if it was a bad business, you would sell the team, reap the rewards, the profits that you got from buying it for pennies on the dollar years ago, and you'd cash out. You'd go put your money in an ETF. It's an exchange traded fund.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to follow along.
You're never going to get that one wrong ever again.
Never again. Yeah, it is a good business. It'd be a better business if I could place a bet right next to the ballpark. Unfortunate. Feels like a missed opportunity, but
how many times this weekend did you say like, "Oh, let me get my FanDuel out fast enough"?
A lot. It was not a good bit. It was not very funny.
Keen observers of the pod will notice that I actually did just name drop FanDuel and not bleep it out.
You did.
That's right. This is what freedom looks like.
As long as you don't mention all that I was putting together. Baseball's a good business, and frankly, baseball's also a good sport. Good entertainment, really enjoyable thing to just go do.
I put it in terms of business because that is something that is a through line for the conversation of this podcast for the last few years. Money talks. We are Squawk Box for the left. You know this. I know this. Listeners know this. The people that don't understand what tipping pitches is all about. No, but I put it in terms of business because I'm looking around at all these seats that are filled, at all these people buying hot dogs and whatnot, and just thinking about it in this way. But moreover, I just think it's like baseball as an important part, and perhaps a smaller or a more fractured part, sure, of our modern world, but it is still important. And I'm sick of people being like, no, baseball is over. It's like, okay, name me another thing that pulls out 40,000 people 80 times a year.
Yeah.
Not
name
your
me another
beloved
place
NBA.
I can get a
Not
name me
your
another place
beloved
I can get a
NBA boys and
free
girls.
Margaritaville shirt. Come on.
Yeah,
the day after getting a free Harry Potter jersey.
Dude, okay, maybe that should be the last thing we talk about.
All right,
actually,
okay.
No matter where we go, no matter what state, no matter what level of competition, it is somehow always Harry fucking Potter night.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Seeing someone dressed as Dobby while we were in line to enter the game, I jumped out of my shoes.
That was that's my sleep paralysis demon level stuff. That was really messed up, actually.
I agree. The line was insane for those giveaways.
There was a good 3,000 people in one line. I've never seen anything like it. To get the free giveaway to wear the Hufflepuff jersey or whatever.
Yeah, right.
My Hufflepuff Red Sox.
Which everyone was doing, that's for sure.
What are you? What house are you in?
I was trying to channel the energy of the guy who was desperately trying to convince his friend that it wasn't somehow Harry Potter night. It's like, no way, they just did one of these. It can't be. I'm like, look around, brother.
It's either Harry Potter night or it's the most collectivist action in the history of America.
Exactly.
Everyone decided to come to the ballpark wearing this one specific jersey, or they gave it away tonight. Those are the only two choices. It's a groundswell. It's Occupy Wall Street, but for Harry Potter jerseys at the Red Sox game.
That's a really awful sentence to put out into the world. And I was having fun talking about Fenway too.
I had a great time. Congrats to the Red Sox fans.
Mm-hmm.
You got a good thing going up there. We're the last people to tell you. But you got a good thing going up there. Congrats to John Henry.
Mm-hmm.
You could just cash out of the Lima Bean Futures business and you could just double down on the Sox. That's my advice for you.
Is it lima beans? I thought it was soybeans.
I am just going to keep saying lima beans.
Okay.
It is very likely not that.
Maybe if we talk about it long enough, he'll be like, maybe I should get into lima beans.
He's probably moved beyond beans and just straight towards water. He's just trading on water at this point.
Yeah.
I think it's soybeans, right? The look on your face is telling me soybeans.
No, I'm not. I'm looking up how lima bean futures are doing.
Okay, great.
See if I can give him a little investment advice. Let's see what DuckDuckGo's AI tells me.
How DuckDuckGo has AI now?
Yeah, unfortunately. But I have to actively click the button to generate an answer.
Okay, we can live with that.
We can live with it. Let's ask Google.
Let me ask you this before you continue on this path. If I said to you, Alex, by the end of today, you have to own some lima bean futures, what would your steps be to get there? Like, how do you even get that? Walk me through your process.
What I'm learning is that lima bean futures are not traded on major exchanges. These future contracts typically focus on staple crops like
soybeans. Okay. So amended. If you had to acquire some soybean futures before the end of the day, how would you do it?
Well, the markets aren't open today, first of all. So can you give me 24 hours?
Yes. In the next 24 hours, you have to own $100 of soybean futures. You say what? Stop putting this off and just answer the question. And stop reading. I want to hear from your brain.
All right, I'm on Wall Street bets right now. Maybe vanilla bean futures apply? Like maybe I could use the same method?
You reading Wall Street bets threads on the pod means that it's really getting to closing time.
Really over. Really, really over. Hey, be the barstool you want to see in the world, man.
No, this is a recession indicator if I have ever seen one.
I'll get back to you. I'm on AgWeb right now.
No, I want to hear. This is the bit. Do the bit.
Well, all right. So first I'd go to CME Group, right? This is obviously CME Group, which is the world's leading derivatives market.
Right? I'm so disappointed.
What, do you want me to have Robinhood open?
I just want you to tell me whether or not you think you could buy that on Robinhood.
Probably.
I would say
probably
no.
not on Robinhood.
I would say no.
I might have to go through Charles Schwab.
Oh, Chuck.
Talk to Chuck.
We're on first name basis.
Yeah.
I bet you I could get them on Morgan Stanley. What do you think?
Yeah.
Is Morgan Stanley one of the jersey sponsors?
No.
They should be.
You want more banking sponsorships?
Well, it'll be really easy to place them because we'll just throw them right in the middle there where all the other banking ones are that we didn't know how to judge.
Right, there you go. Hey, look. if I search where to buy soybean futures, Charles Schwab is the first option that comes up. So
how far are you willing to take this bet? Like, can you buy $10 worth of soybean futures?
I'll do it right now.
Please do. Do you have a Charles Schwab account?
No, I don't.
You can make one with our pod email.
You know what? There is a soybean fund on Robinhood I could buy right now.
Wow, ladies and germs. That does it. What does it trade at?
The price?
Yeah. No, the volume. Yeah, the price. What are you talking about?
I wasn't sure if you were asking for like market cap or anything like that, or dividend yield. Archer Daniels Midland, which I think might traffic in soybeans, is trading at 47.71 right now.
It's kind of a lot.
Actually, kind of a big drop today. Yeah. Ooh,
a big drop.
It's been kind of hammered over the last couple weeks, though.
By the dip.
Yeah. Really, it looks like all dip right now, for being quite honest. I don't know how John Henry did this. But you know what? I trust him.
Wait,
I trust him
say
implicitly.
Something so crazy here at the end of the podcast that I know a Typic Pitches listener will do now that I say it?
Yeah, do it.
Can you plot the soybean market towards how often the Red Sox have paid the tax over the last 20 years? So like they pay the tax when the soybean market is doing well and they get under the tax when it's not doing well.
I'm pretty sure he's not still invested in soybeans, right? Like I don't think that's his primary source of income.
You're telling me he gave up the soybean addiction? I don't trust that. I don't believe that.
Well, look, like I said, market's been hammered in the last couple of years. So I hope he did. But it is like one of those things, like, do you sell the first stock you ever bought? Or do you hold on to it for posterity's sake?
I sold mine.
You did sell yours.
Well, I didn't buy it, but yes. The first stock you ever bought was fucking X the Everything app. You sold it.
That's right, it was. I sold it too early or too late, depending on how you look at it.
So you didn't get to keep it until Elon bought it from you?
No, I didn't.
So you didn't get that Musk cash?
Nope.
You could have got fat and happy off that. You would have retired from podcasting.
Well, I mean, I get the
Great play,
Must-
Lindor.
I get the must cash through my payouts every month.
As an engineer.
No,
For
as
X.
a verified X. What is it? X. I don't even know what it's called anymore. Used to be Twitter Blue.
X Premium.
X Premium, right? Which once again, it's a social media app
Where you do your banking.
and nothing else. Where I do my banking. Yep. And trade my soybean futures. I think we should end this podcast. I think it's time.
I think you're right. Thank you to everybody for listening. If you somehow liked what you heard and you want more, it's over there at patreon.com/tippingpitches. 2 different tiers. The top tier, the one that's $10 a month, which is like 1/5 of a soybean future. That's just good value.
Yeah.
Gets you extra episodes, the whole back catalog of bonus episodes, of which now there are almost 40 of them. We publish those every other week. We do a little segment called 3 Up, 3 Down, where we talk about 3 things that are bringing us joy, 3 things that are taking away our joy in the baseball world, loosely in the baseball world, really mostly just in our lives with like a bias towards baseball sometimes. Sometimes we bring our friends on to do those pods. It's the fun time. I hope you will enjoy it. If you remember way back when at the beginning of this podcast where we described the new shirts and you liked one of those shirts, but you thought, I'll wait till the end of the episode when they plug those shirts again. Now's your time. tippingpitches.myshopify.com, link in the description. Shirts are $29. We're just keeping them the same price because we don't believe in inflation of the almighty dollar. It just stays the same in our world. In fact, sometimes it gets cheaper. Thank you for listening. Thank you for enduring all of this Boston Red Sox chat. I promise, we're not going to talk about the Red Sox for a little while. Unless something crazy happens. But we will be back to talk about something besides those Red Sox in just 1 week's time. We'll see you then.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alex Rodriguez. Tipping pitches.
Tipping pitches.
This is the one that I love the most.
Tipping pitches.
So we'll see you next week. See ya!